All right, good afternoon. It's Thursday, January 23rd here. We're getting started with I think the working title for this is going to be Get Resin Smarter with your RTi team, the resin practice. Our goal for today is to give you a little bit of our insight on the dynamic world of resin, keep you updated with what's going on out there to help make you better at your job. So. The first thing I certainly wanted to cover is Texas Freeze 2.0. Brian, I know you're down there in Houston, man. Has Frosty melted yet? You guys
Yeah,
very
yeah, it was fun while it lasted having a full day of snow. Yeah, we don't get that often. Paul's down here as well. And from the looks of it, I mean, the worst has passed already. I mean, it's definitely not what it was a few years back with Winter Storm Uri back in 2021. In fact, if you recall back then, I mean, that really just shut down the entire state of Texas. When I say shut down, I mean, we're talking logistics, plants, I mean, the roads, rail cars, I mean, the Port of Houston. Now, we had that for a while. It wasn't as bad. I mean, rail lines shut down for a while. Warehouses were shut down, so nothing was coming in or out. The Port of Houston was shut down, but that was only momentarily. I mean, that was maybe for 2 days at the most. I mean, here we are, it's Thursday already. Everything seems to be back up and running. I'm actually very impressed with how the grid held up, the electricity grid held up. I was tracking center point here in the Houston area. Yes, we did have spotty, uh, you know, blackouts every so often, people losing power, but it was not as widespread as it was a few years ago. In fact, I mean, all Houston seems to be running fine. And that what's one thing to keep in mind. Look, we still have another couple months of winter left. So, if this was a test, then, the Houston area definitely passed. So I'm very confident in, the next round of freezing temperatures coming in here, especially on the supply chain when it comes to resin and packaging. I know Paul, he's up north in the Heights, the nicer part of town. It's not dependent. I'm more on the south side going towards Galveston, but Paul, I mean, you know, you were kind of telling me the same thing, man. I mean, it didn't seem like it was a big issue.
No, listen, I mean, thanks, Brian. The kids enjoyed it. We enjoyed it. 4 inches of snow. We haven't gotten that in 65 years. I'm not quite sure what the petrochemical industry in the U.S. Gulf Coast looked 65 years ago, but I mean, at this point, you kind of spot on, Brian. It was a major event. Credit to all producers. They were actually quite well prepared. Everybody kind of shut down ahead of time, expecting the city shutting down for a couple of days as well. So, hey, it's looking good now. It's supposed to be 70 degrees on Saturday, so we're resuming operations back to normal. It's just, as one of my ex-mentors used to say, a steam cracker or a PDH plant, it's not like starting up a lawnmower. It takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of effort. So we're hearing with, major production issues at least two petrochemical producers, at least one PGP plant. So, a slew of refineries are still down, at least from a polypropylene feedstock standpoint. It's the worst is behind us for this month, looks like, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take a little bit of effort to find out where we are relative to where we were at this time a week ago. So, but I mean, you're absolutely right. We didn't lose power. I was following kind of ERCOT as well. It was yesterday morning was when it was coldest. Sun comes out, solar power generation comes out. Wind starts blowing. We end up with wind supporting the natural gas burn that we have, and last but not least, power supply from batteries. So it's, even though we're oil and gas state and we take pride in oil and gas, we seeing some of the renewables kind of pop up as a supply to the grid. That's impressive. I mean, Texas in 21st century. We're not just relying on oil and gas for heat and power generation. But again, overall, a lot of plants were shut down. Some of those plants, even though those plants shut down, the shutdown didn't go as planned. So, here we are, kind of reading within the leaves. Where's that going to take us for the month of Feb? At this point, things are looking up price wise, for polypropylene in particular. It looks like we're going to hit a 4 or 5 cent increase. There's no make no mistake, this was a crisis. Nobody wants to shut down a plant because of weather event, whether it's planned or not. I mean, there's a number of, at this point, at least 3 polypropylene producers are looking for margin expansions in February because of this shutdown. So technically, we're not out of the woods yet, even though the weather is getting better. People are still assessing how long is it going to take to bring these plants back up. How long are we going to talk about what the impact of the production is going to be? This time last year, when we had not really a snow event, but a freeze event, 3 producers didn't come back, and they came back with force majeures after the shutdown, even though same thing, announced ahead of time, was not unexpected, and lo and behold, 3 force majeures in copolymer that took us with a tight supply throughout the better part of 2024. So again, we're not expecting something similar in 25, but at this point, we know we have problems. We just don't know how easy they're going to be solved. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, Paul. And I too was looking at the ERCOT map, during the storm, and just encouraged to see the number of outages was nowhere near what it was last time. So it certainly seems like the grid certainly had it together more. Kevin, what are you hearing? As it relates to polyethylene, and I know that's where you focus a lot. There's obviously a whole separate conversation on tariffs, which we'll get to. That's affecting that market.
Yes,
I guess where's your head at? Where do you think this is going?
Yeah, so similar to Paul, we kind of look at kind of the upstream feedstocks, how they're faring with regards to shutdowns and so forth in advance of some of the weather event. Some of the ethylene crackers were taken down in advance, so that was helpful. There was also some derating of the production capacity within different operations to limit the amount of energy usage, just in case there was an event that took down the energy grid, which did not happen in this case. So it was thankful. Everybody was very thankful, as we're saying, that did not occur. I think the main thing with regards to the impact of polyethylene, the inventories are relatively high. So there's not and the event was relatively narrow in scope for a couple of days. So it's a matter of kind of looking at how the producers start back up, if there's any delays. Similar to what Paul mentioned, sometimes when you take these units down, even proactively, sometimes there's some challenges getting them back up. So we're going to monitor that to see how those activities are going. Some of the producers are already in turnarounds as well, so those did not have the impact that the producers that are already running did. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but in general, inventories are relatively robust right now. There's no issue with supply. It's just a matter of how they come back up, and looking at the overall picture from a pricing perspective, nominations were already issued for this month from 5 to 7 cents for polyethylene, and some already for next month as well in February. So we'll see how this impact fares out with regards to the nominations that go through on the indices at the end of January, and also going into February as well.
Gotcha. That That's super helpful, Kevin. I appreciate you walking through that. Anything else on the weather, guys? I know New Orleans is getting, quite a bit of snow, what, over 12 inches. We have a colleague in New Orleans that's brought
We're
the northerly
everywhere.
warmth. Yeah,
We
we're
dominate the
everywhere.
market. No, listen, I mean, this is exports are going to be, this weather thing is affecting exports, right? Earlier in the year, we averted the ILA strike, but this freeze, like I said, it shut down Port of Houston, it shut down Port of New Orleans for a couple of days. 80% of resin exports take place from those two ports. So anybody that's looking for an immediate delivery of their product, that's definitely going to be delayed. So we're going to have a little bit of a curtailment there. Anybody that's dealt with a shipping company knows that they don't like shutting down ports. They start rolling bookings, just the delays kind of exasperate themselves time over time. But overall, we concentrate on the positive here. Everybody saw it coming. We didn't lose power as a state. So just the 2 days that everybody was running at reduced rates definitely is going to reflect in all industry data that we kind of monitor and that we follow through. It's just the question is, and we saw it across the board on polyethylene, polypropylene. There were a reduction in rates already. We'll see how that's going to roll into January. Polypropylene in particular, inventories are relatively robust. I don't want to switch topics here from the weather to tariffs, but
Oh, let's
inventories
do
are,
it.
yeah,
Let's do it.
let's
Let's
make it
do it,
happen.
brother.
Well,
Let's
and
No,
do
but
it.
the interesting thing about this, Paul, is, you kind of hit it on the head. Look, the industry had time to prepare for a lot of these events. They had time to prepare for a potential port strike. They had time to prepare for a potential weather event. They had time to prepare, and they still have time to prepare for these tariffs, whatever they may be, if it's on US and Mexico come February 1st. So, no, I don't mean to steal your thunder there, but yeah, I mean, the industry has had time to prepare for these events.
Right, yes and no, right? Like what's going to be included in the tariffs? How deep are we going to go into that rabbit hole? Canadian producer today said that their importer on record, so they're planning on protecting their clients. What that means, I don't know. These tariffs that we're going to implement on various countries, what do they implement tariffs on us? It's not a simple. It's going to take us a lot of time to detangle what those tariffs are going to mean, but as long as it takes, it's not going to be cheap. It's not going to affect pricing negatively. This is going to kind of further supply some of the talk of inflationary pressure into markets. Again, it's a mess. We don't know how people are going to react, how counterparties are going to react towards these tariffs. That we know of, a lot of these, and again, we're concentrating on resin, but a lot of resin producers with Canadian operations have been moving a lot of material into the country, trying to kind of get ready for that event to take place. That trend is not going to stop until a final announcement is made on what the tariff is going to look like. Even the announcement is made, we're still looking at a time of an implementation. It's not going to be, February 1st.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's going to take time. So supply, I'm not saying that supply is not threatened, but there's, and this is talking to a lot of clients that have exposure to global supply chain, but people have been trying to, the moment Trump kind of got into, got the elections in November 6th, the influx of product materials that we can bring into the country has increased. People are expecting something like that to happen. And again, proper preparation prevents poor performance. So if something is to be implemented, we might not see the impact of it right away. It might be a lingering effect throughout the summer, especially for pricing, because so much product has been bought up at the end of the year. Ahead of that, so much product has been brought into the country ahead of that. So, I mean, again, nobody knows for sure how this is going to shake out. Nobody knows for sure what the impact of this is going to be. The United States they're responsible for 80% of Canadian energy exports. 80% of refineries in the Midwest are essentially going through. They use a lot of Canadian crudes. If you put a 25% tariff, is that going to exclude energy? I mean, what spectrum of the energy is going to be affected by this? Is it going to be finished goods? I mean, there's a lot of. It's a bold statement. It's a sound statement, but there's a lot of details in there that are not hammered out that could be affecting other people, could not be affecting other people. We'll see. We don't know. We're on top of it. It's going to cost more money. That's the two statements that are true.
Yeah,
So-
Paul, I'd like to kind of add on what you're saying because you bring up a good point. Prior to the end of the year, a lot of people pulled forward demand, not just because of the potential tariffs, but if you look at it, potential port strike, in addition to that, potential nominations for price increases. So there's really a threefold reason for that pull forward at the end of the year. So like you're saying, it is going to be interesting to see how that fares through the first quarter going into the second quarter from a demand standpoint, and because the supply was pulled forward, and then we'll see what the policies actually get implemented. If they, I think the February 1st date is what we're hearing right now, is being told of that could be the first date that they could be implemented. So we'll see. There's obviously a couple of days, about a week left or so, to see where that actually goes. So I think everybody's going to be tuned in to see what actually transpires with regards to negotiations.
Yeah, and to your guys' point, I mean, this is obviously a bigger picture than just plastics, and there's the conversation around how much of this is posturing versus reality. I don't know, when I see Trump say he wants to create an external revenue service, to me that seems like a pretty strong statement that he intends to have some level of tariffs in there. But I guess we'll see. The one thing that you were mentioning earlier, Paul, that I actually just had somebody bring up to me today, on the retaliatory tariffs, right? I mean, how could that impact the polyethylene market, right? Where we're exporting, let's call it half of it, right? What if tariffs get stacked on top of that? I mean, there's a lot of ways this thing could go, right?
I mean, from retaliatory standpoint, the United Kingdom said that they're not going to refer to the Gulf of America as Gulf of America. They'll keep referring to the Gulf of Mexico. So, it's
There you go. Yeah.
exciting times are ahead of us. That's for sure. But like I said, just engaging with the market, looking at everything that is going on from a resin standpoint that can potentially affect it in a either positive or negative way. That's what we're there for. That's what we do. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is the role we play here. We're here to help you navigate through these changing tides. Oh, what else? I mean, obviously we're talking a lot about Trump, and the inauguration was Monday. Tariffs are obviously the big elephant in the room that everybody wants to talk about now. But I guess, do you guys have any other macro level thoughts on how the Trump presidency and the what seems to be quite a mandate that the Republicans have, and how that might affect the plastics industry here as we move forward 2025?
I think, Michael, I think to that point, I think one thing to watch this year is really what trade flows are currently and what they could be by the end of this year. Not just talking about the Panama Canal, but also
Sure.
the Red Sea with regards to that conflict that's really a limited amount of vessel traffic. If that changes throughout the year, that could change the pricing dynamics overall. for different types of commodities and resins that flow through the Red Sea and Panama Canal. So I think that's something we're going to be watching, both on a policy perspective and then just in general to see what type of reduced noise we see through those ports of or those transit areas.
Yeah, that certainly seems like a big area of focus. I know we're going to be talking a lot about the Panama Canal here.
The American Canal. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
exactly. I was going to go there.
Yeah, I did. How? Listen, I mean, a lot of moving parts. Interesting times are ahead of us here. It's I'm not sure where. There's no clear directive. I mean, it's every time we swim in a lake of black swans. Nobody expected to, the port strike was a big deal back in October. A shutdown of U.S. ports hasn't happened like that in a very long time. The freeze were kind of everybody expected, but still, those events are starting to become a little bit more commonplace. The middle of May last year, we ended up with tornado hitting up some of the Houston area. So it's weather events are becoming a little bit more disruptive. The effects on markets are there. The lingering effects of some of those weather events, that remain to be calculated, that remain to be seen. But stuff is happening that we didn't think is going to happen, and we got to be ready for it. And we're really good at helping with that. So, and try to kind of crawl back from behind the 8 ball, I guess, would be a good way to put it. So, listen, I mean, that's really it. Quite a few things coming up. Like the next one is, let's see what happens with these tariffs. And after that, we'll see if OPEC yields to Trump and actually does end up lowering oil prices, because that's been a driving factor to a lot of this too, right? WTI went from $65 to $80 in a matter of 5 weeks. That says something. I mean, structurally that market is not really long. There's a lot going on, a lot to monitor, a lot to see, and it helps when you have somebody that's all they do is watch it. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of balls to be juggled, and hey, we're jugglers, right? We help you juggle those balls. Not sure if that metaphor is going to land, but I'm going to try it anyway.
Not in international markets, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's fair. We're focused on
that's okay.
North America anyway, right?
There you go.
Listen, I wanted to try to sneak in one more topic here before we wrap up. You guys have been super well behaved today, and it's great. Let's keep that momentum here. I know one of the big, talking points, here in January with our clients and with the market in general in contracts has been non-market adjustments, right? And it's funny, my son asked me, he overheard me having a conversation with somebody the other day about it, and he was confused, and I was trying to explain it to him, and I found myself almost going cross-eyed. Basically what I told him in a nutshell is, at certain times there are charts that are helping you understand what's happening in the market start to decouple from what's actually happening. I won't read you the methodology. It would have bored my son to sleep. But in a nutshell, it's a correction in those charts to better reflect what's actually happening in the market. Would you guys want to add anything to that?
So Paul and I come from the market intelligence background. We work for publications. Paul, I don't know if you've ever been a part of a non-market adjustment. I was maybe 15 years ago on the styrene market when I was working for a company called ICIS. They're still around today. They're still very strong in, petrochemicals. So there's a reason you don't call it correction. There's a reason you call it an adjustment. Just, going back, a lot of these markets, are not as transparent, the further downstream you get. That makes it more difficult. So instead of having one price, say like a one monthly settlement like you'll have for some markets like polypropylene, propylene and ethylene are probably two big examples when it comes to resins. Now, everyone knows what those monthly contracts are at the end of the month, but when you get further downstream or certain other markets, you don't have that one price. You'll have a range of things. So a lot of times you'll track the movement. You'll know it'll go up 5 cents or it'll come down 5 cents. You're tracking the movement, and that's correct. But when it comes to the actual range, that's where over time it gets warped. And that takes a lot just to backtrack. It takes a lot of investigation. It takes a lot. I mean, you got to talk to, participants in the market. You got to talk to, buyers, sellers, middlemen that maybe are involved in the contract, or maybe they have, I don't want to say so much influence, but they have knowledge of the contract. So it's, back then something like that was not a good thing. It was not a good thing, but it was the necessary thing to do. It was kind of a necessary evil. It didn't happen, all often back when I started in market intelligence maybe 20 years ago. So it's not like that was commonplace, but now, as these markets become more dynamic, you have a lot more fluidity, you have a lot more just, these are emerging markets, some of them are just maturing markets. You're seeing a lot of that more so, and it's almost becoming commonplace now. My personal opinion on that, that's if yes, it is a necessary evil. It is necessary at times, but the more commonplace it becomes, that's not necessarily a good thing when you're looking at a price index. So it's something they have to cope with, and it's not just them that have to deal with it. It's not easy for them, but it's a lot more difficult for buyers, especially if you're on a formula basis that's tied to an indice. You know, will we see more of this? Most likely, we probably will be seeing a lot of it. You're never going to quite perfect the wheel, so to speak, when it comes to market intelligence. It's like I said, a necessary evil. And I'll toss this to Paul, who, he's coming from a market intelligence background too on this. In addition to being a trader, so he definitely has more insight from a trading standpoint and a market intelligence standpoint.
Oh, listen, not everybody is an RTi client. This is our bread and butter, is trying to kind of navigate through that. That's a very good point, Michael. And thank you, Brian. The NMA is a very, I don't want to say a painful topic, but in markets like the ones that we've seen during Corona and post-Corona, demand was relatively robust. Prices go up. Sooner or later, people negotiate lower pricing. Not everybody does, and this is where we come to help kind of normalize. We kind of isolate the sound from the noise, I guess, or we help people a lot with that. Again, between the four of us and the four other people that we have in back office that kind of help out with the new system that we're pushing and everything else. The non-market adjustment topic for a lot of our clients becomes it's a much easier conversation than it was, I would say, about 10 years ago or about 5 years ago, even though those non-market adjustments are coming a little bit more often than we would like to admit. We really kind of help out to kind of reduce the impact of it to a lot of clients. And try to stay on top of it and kind of minimize their usage in the first place. So having said that, yeah, it's a fun world. It's a fun time to be here in the United States.
It's a fun time.
I don't know if it's I'm not sure it's an international concept, the non-market adjustment. I think it's strictly think it's a strictly a price per, you know, cents per pound kind of topic of discussion. But you know, we try to do what we do and to explain to everybody else.
I think I would agree, Paul. I mean, I've certainly, I think, you know, it's become easier to talk about than when I started in plastics, you know, 12 years ago, the whole concept. But you still do find people that are, you know, that don't know what it is, confused about exactly what it means for them. You know, maybe other emotions come, maybe the, you know, anger. But you know, listen, strategies. To your point, this is why we're here, you know. And so if you find yourself feeling those emotions right now as it relates to non-market adjustments, come talk to us. It's no risk, right, to get our perspective on your situation. So that's the only salesy thing I'm going to do on this call. But I did say I'd let you guys off the hook. Really do appreciate you guys jumping on and look forward to the next time we get together so that you can get ResinSmarter with RTi. Have a good week, guys. Cheers.
Pleasure.
Yes.
All right, I'm stopping.